have privileged with preparing the preparation for the lesson, especially during these times, these days, as we approach the holidays and the Congress. This is how we're preparing ourselves for the lesson. That's the topic we chose, preparation for the Congress, the prayer of many. That's the prayer for the many, for the whole world cleanse. That will bring the light, the reforming light, that will cause all the good and reconnect us to adhesion. We have come closer during these days of preparation, where as we prepared our lineup, and we worked together in the lessons and the meals, and we constantly overcome everything together. Not the time for the livestock to be granted. This is the meaning of prayer in public, that one must not exclude oneself from the public and ask for oneself, not even to bring contentment to one's Maker, but only for the entire public. One who departs from the public to ask specifically for one's own soul does not build. On the contrary, he inflicts a ruin upon his soul. There cannot be one who retires from the public and bless with one attire of pride. Woe unto him, for he inflicts ruin on his soul. Again, this is the meaning of the prayer of the public, and one must exclude himself from the public and ask for himself, not even to bring contentment to one's Maker, but only for the entire public. One who departs from the public asks specifically on one's soul does not build, he inflicts ruin upon him soul. On the contrary, the active workshop. Why do we give contentment to the Creator specifically, where we pray for the entire public? Again, why do we give contentment to the Creator specifically, where we pray for the entire public? Active workshop. Because we pray for the collective, for all the friends, all the friends in the world. By that we give him contentment because we're all interconnected. The Creator wants us to reveal him, and you can only reveal him if we're similar in our qualities. And the moment we pray for others. You can understand it's the same thing. Yeah, the Creator shattered the vessel, so that through the connection between us to understand his nature, accept his nature, and his nature connects, you turn to him for the entire collective because of that. So it turns out that that's our correction actually, and that connection to one soul, to one Kli, to be as one created being towards one Creator. That's a deficiency that we actually need to awaken, to raise up. If we truly have such a prayer, then it's the actual correction itself. There's no greater contentment than this. For the Creator, through the connection, each friend becomes a member of the collective. If we pray for the all we create, the first man that gives contentment to the Creator, he also tells us in the excerpt, this is the secret of the prayer in public, where one should never go out from the collective. If he has to do that, he has to remain in the whole and pray for the collective. And because the Creator created 1K, and within it includes all of humanity, this vessel was shattered, and therefore we need to pray also for the special vessel that includes all of humanity. Yeah, we need to be like the Creator, to do acts of bestow care for everyone the way he cares for us. That's the whole in the end. Divide all the parts of the soul to one soul, where the Creator will be revealed, and then we'll be able to bring him contentment. Create our yearnings for our prayer. It's written, so let's pray. Do what you can, and the salvation of the Lord is as a blink of the eye. The most important thing before you today is the unity of friends, exerting that more and more can recompense for all the faults. Can do what you can, and the salvation of the Lord is as the blink of an eye. The most important thing before you today is the unity of friends, exerting that more and more, for it can recompense for all the faults. 7 workshop. Let's raise a prayer for the unity of the friends. Let's raise a prayer for the unity of the friends. Silent workshop. Hello friends. During the first part we will connect to a lesson from December 21st, 2021, one about the article Shamarti 104 and the Sabbater was sitting. You can find the article in Barulam writings and in the Shamarti book as well as on the system. Shamarti 104 and the Sabbater was sitting. So we're in a lesson on from the Shamarti article. So we will start with an article number 104 in Shamarti. You can find the study material in our site in the food system under the study material button. You can send their questions as well. Pertinent Questions to the lesson will be aired during the lesson roughly. Yes, we have 2 very short articles today from Shamanti, and that's probably more or less how Barisam said it and wrote it based on his words, and it's these few points. Along the whole path is achieving Lishma, which is above our ego, above ourself. Calculations, so that all our calculations will be according to the will to bestow, meaning the calculation of the Creator and not that of our ego. The more we transcend all of the conditions that we see, feel, experience, each and every time, the more we rise in faith above reason, meaning we rise towards Bina further and further, coming closer to the degree of Bina and moving away from that of Mal. Accordingly, the reason is the degree of Malat, faith is the degree of Bina, and that's faith above reason, that I make a calculation not according to my will to receive, but according to the will to bestow. And the will to bestow, we don't know what that is in the Creator. But when I want to approach it, come closer to it somewhat, feel it, then Kolists tell me, you should engage in loving others instead of loving yourself. You need to engage in giving instead of receiving. And in such a way, you'll approach Lishma. The less you think about yourself, and the more you think about the benefit of the 10, and through this sort of exercises you'll approach Lishma. Said a few words about this here, as they were studying the Zohar. So this is article 104, and the saboteur was sitting, meaning that the saboteur is present. What is it about? What is he saying in the Zohar portion? Noah, he says this, there was a flood, and the saboteur was sitting in the midst of it. He asked, a flood means a flood of water. This in itself is deadly, and a saboteur, it's a flood. So what does it mean that the saboteur was sitting in the midst of it, in the midst of the flood? Also, so it's a trouble inside a trouble. Also, what is the difference between the flood and the saboteur? They both bring pressure and suffering. So Barisam replied that the flood is corporeal torments, meaning torments of the body. Within it, meaning within the torments of the body, there is yet another saboteur, who sabotages spirituality. This is the main thing. This means that the afflictions of the body bring him foreign thoughts until these foreign thoughts sabotage and kill his spirituality. Meaning this is what we already know from all life, that different states and pleasant states come to us. Fatigue, confusion, weakness could also be extreme states that are pressuring us where something is terribly wrong, whatever it can be. If we put all those things together from the environment and the family and whatever it is that a person has, all of that can be called a flood. Let's see. And within that flood sits the saboteur, and the saboteur means that all these troubles that appear corporeally, they detach us from spirituality. It's hard for us to advance from within them, to move closer to spirituality, to think in order to bestow, to do what's good in the eyes of the Creator, because the corporeal troubles pressure us. So there's 2 saboteurs here, so to speak, a trouble within a trouble, a corporeal trouble that carries a spiritual trouble inside of it. This means that the saboteur is sitting in the midst of the flood. And here we have to make a good judgment of how do we cope with this? How do we overcome the disturbances that are corporeal, understanding that they come only to direct us better to a higher level of Lishma. And then we'll understand that from the flood itself, meaning from within life and all of the circumstances in life and all of our relationships in the 10 that also come and try to sort of engulf us with these waves of the flood inside. That still we need to rise and try to fight the corporeal and spiritual flood. And there's an order to this. Work against that, against the external and internal disturbances. The external disturbances could be many things, but they too we have to relate them to the same source. And just as the inner disturbance, it's one within the other. So we have to align these things. Sometimes we forget that it all comes in order to direct us to go above reason, to go above our mind. And other times, even if we don't forget that it comes to deflect us from above reason, but we're just incapable and we're willing to succumb to it. So we have to really be accountable to ourselves here. What is the saboteur within the saboteur? Meaning the spiritual disturbance that lies within the corporeal one, and thus we'll Advance. I don't see questions. Okay, there are a few. All right, so Mady. We'll clarify it based on your questions. Oh, and maybe you'll read it as well. No, yes, no. Shati 104. And the Sabbatar was sitting in Zar the Noah portion. There was a flood, and the Sabbatar was sitting in the midst of it. He asked, a flood means a flood of water. This in itself is deadly. And the Sabbatar. So what does it mean that the Sabbatar was sitting in the midst of it? In the midst of the flood. Also, what is the difference between the flood and the Sabbatar? He replied that the flood meaning corporal torments, meaning torments of the body. Within it meaning within the torments of the body there is yet another Sabbatar, who sabotages spirituality. This means that the afflictions of the body bring him foreign thoughts, until these foreign thoughts sabotage and kill his spirituality. All right, let's start from. Thank you very much, teacher. Do we understand correctly that in every flood, in the right work, we need to seek the Sabbata, meaning not to struggle with the corporal flood, but with the inner Sabbata, in each and every state where we discover ourselves to be disconnected from the Creator, from in order to bestow from the group itself, from everything that belongs to spirituality, to being in the spiritual state. Whatever state it is, we have to try to determine two states, the bodily state and the spiritual state. Bodily means all the states and circumstances that we have here in our corporeal world, which is well, first our health, our mood, our corporeal environment, family, that's one, and two, the extent to which it affects and hinders our connection with the Ten and the Creator. And this is how we align all these circumstances, everything that affect us, to a single source, that it all comes from the Creator. Of course, the whole flood comes from Him, including both its external and internal appearance. So first try to see everything there that exists as belonging to the Creator, to the point that we only have left to think whether I too am belong to the Creator. And so then what is the only thing left outside the Creator? It's just that point of observation and decision, which is the point in the heart. That when the Creator created the will to receive, He detached it from Himself, so to speak. And so we feel ourselves as if detached from Him. So I have to relate my mind to the Creator as well. What do I conclude here? That I don't have my own mind or heart, no thoughts, no emotions. It's all designed by the Creator in me, so that above my feeling and my understanding I'll rise to Him as the source. And even though in my feelings and in my thoughts might go through various states that are opposite and confusing and throw me from one end to the other, I accept all of that as a flood sent by the Creator, and He has to send it in order to clean, to purify my desire. As we read that after the flood, the earth, let's say planet Earth, is cleansed for all kinds of phenomena, and thus new life can emerge. So even though this water that comes and clean everything is a flood, it's not just the water of Biner, it's been and together that cling each other, and thus such a connection is made that then leads to corrections, meaning there's a connection that happens between Biner and Mut. And that's how we can use that in advance. That's how creation began. And creation means that within the human there is an opportunity, a possibility to transcend his will to receive and relate everything that's happening to him to the upper force to be to bestow. So if a person realizes that both the external saboteur and the inner saboteur, one inside the other, the saboteur in his corporeal states, and even more than that in his spiritual states, that prevents him from rising to the degrees of Biner degrees. Faith, if he understands it all comes from the Creator, and he has to relate both of those saboteurs to the Creator. These great disturbances, there's none else besides him. So by that, he gets rid of foreign thoughts both on the level of Malat and above that on the level of Biner, and he comes to a state of faith above reason. What's faith above reason? Meaning I don't take into account both of these saboteurs, the corporeal and the spiritual, and I'm only adhered to bestow to the Creator. That is the first point that exists in the quality of faith above the. So, in arranging our attitude to spirituality, we have to differentiate between these two levels. The corporeal disturbance. Typically, we feel ourselves tired, powerless, maybe even some sickness, other corporeal disturbances, family, work, etc., etc. And what's happening is that within these disturbances, we have to discover the spiritual disturbance that I don't want. I have no strength, no mood. I have such laziness I can't overcome. That's the second more internal saboteur, and against it we should especially fight. So by these two saboteurs, we try to reach the cause of them, which is the Creator, as it says, that I bring the flood to the ground, meaning He does all that. And by that we come to the degree of faith above reason, that I accept both as coming from the Creator, and I hold on to the friends and, along with the friends and the Creator. That's how we're saved from the flood, and we discover that our connection between us and together with the Creator leads us to the shore, and we come out of the ark, and we begin to settle on the ground, meaning in the will to receive that can already achieve the degree of being that's where we start a new settlement. Faith above reason. Okay, all right, this from what you just answered, if I understood it correctly, the flood, the spiritual saboteur that the Creator sends to purify our will to receive. This saboteur, this internal saboteur is what bothers us, as we want to perform actions for spirituality. The question, what need did the Creator have to put a saboteur inside of us? We have two forces, and we have to discover them, detect them, understand the connection between them. How do we work with both of them and advance in such a way? That's why we have two sabers, on behalf of Malat and another one on behalf of Bin. And this determines also that we are in between the worlds, the corporeal world and the spiritual world. We're in two bodies. One, let's say our biological body that we discover as the one that exists here in this world, and the other body is our spiritual body, which means desires to bestow, and that exists on the spiritual level. And it all comes from, well, the fact that it's one inside the other, that the true saboteur sits within the external saboteur. It's because we're made of the matter of Malat, and we wish to achieve qualities or behavior of Bina, and so that gives us two levels. We are created being on the level of Mal, and the Creator is on the level of Bina, and that is what we need to attain, how we need to study his behavior and become similar to the Creator. That's why there are two levels and two such troubles that prevent us, one on behalf of Malat, the other on behalf of Bina. We have to see it as helpmate against thee. There's nothing that actually prevents us. It just awakens us and prevents us from resting, and otherwise we would just agree doing nothing, falling asleep and so on. These two saboteurs constantly shake us and push us to rise higher to the goal. Florida. Yes. Thank you, Raf. The more I'm listening, the more you're answering the question. But I'm wondering with someone who's yearning for spirituality, if these two always go hand in hand, or can one exist without the other at times? No, they both exist simultaneously. They both come from the Creator together, but the question is, to what extent am I in contact with the environment? The 10. And then I find that there's just one saboteur or two, meaning if I'm connected to the environment, then I discover that the disturbances are actually spiritual. And if I'm not connected to the group, then I typically find just a corporeal disturbance. I feel bad. I have no time. I have no power. I'm incapable of doing anything. And maybe I'm even just letting go of things and all kinds of thoughts and desires like that. And when I'm connected to the group, then I am on a different level of thoughts and doubts, even because the group necessitates me. Envy, lust, and honor take the person out of this world, meaning I also can't allow myself to talk to the friends the way I think about towards myself. With myself I can say I don't want anything, I'm just going to leave everything and I'm sick of it. But when I'm with the friends, the honor and envy don't allow me to speak this way. And so by envy, lust and honor, I don't allow myself to speak that way, to be that lowly in the eyes of the friends, and that begins to help me rise to a higher level. Our ego is called helpmate against thee. It helps us rise from below upwards. We have to see how that happens, and what makes it helpmate against thee. It's as if working against itself. Moscow 6. Why is it written that it's a saboteur? After all, It's the help from the Creator. It's on the contrary. So how's that possible? This depends on how you accept Him. Of course, it comes from the Creator. When all kinds of disturbances come, they come only in order to show you that you're in a bad state and you have an opportunity to rise to a better state. We rise in sanctity and never descend in sanctity. But it all depends on how you've prepared yourself. In the 10, as we discussed, that the 10 doesn't allow you to succumb to the disturbance, but rather overcome it and advance. No. Moscow 6. Moscow 7. This article says that inside corporality there's an additional force that can obligate a person, meaning foreign thoughts can kill the spirituality in him. You gave the example of Rabash that he was rejoiced with the sufferings of the body, that he wasn't worried about the sabbater. No, he would say, he would kind of point at his body and say, let it suffer. Meaning he would detach himself from the body, from the corporeal disturbances, and said, let it suffer, meaning he already detached from the body and moved to a different level. He was able to use the suffering of the body to ascend spiritually, meaning that these disturbances won't be as disturbances to him. The question is whether always in the sufferings of the body is the sabbater that's killing spirituality. Yes, always. Even if a person doesn't identify it, like we say, we call it people off the street, ordinary people who don't study the wisdom of Kabbalah, people who are not intending to achieve lishma. So for them too, the suffering that all of humanity goes through is not for no reason. They all come together and accumulate and push humanity forward, but not in a path of light, path of Torah, but in a path of suffering. It's not enough and it's not desirable, but at least it's something. Last question about the same thing. If it's possible to protect ourselves from this corporal sufferings and find a disconnect from the body, because you come to the lesson nevertheless to receive the influence of the light. How to protect ourselves from the saboteur that sits inside. That's where we already need the 10, by connecting and by intending towards the inner saboteur, that by it, thanks to it, we rise higher. This is like the example of Jacob, who came to Egypt to Pharaoh, and the Torah writes that Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Or how could it be that Jacob, the senior of the father, is the middle line? Abraham was the right line, Isaac left line, and Jacob is the middle one, meaning that the most important. And he comes to a meeting with Pharaoh. Pharaoh symbolizes all of the ego created by the Creator, and he greets Pharaoh. First of all, it's a very high degree that he's capable of doing that. And what we see from this is that he knew how to use all the ego created by the Creator, called Pharaoh, in order to bestow. This is called blessing him or greeting him, the connecting him with Pharaoh and to the Creator, to the source of both. That from the Creator comes both Jacob and Pharaoh. And Jacob blessing Pharaoh, meaning he raises Pharaoh to the degree of the fathers, meaning that there is no inferiority. Here, on the contrary, we're talking about corrections. All right. 1. Okay, Bulgaria on. Hello. Nevertheless, when I feel, let's say, physical pain, it bothers me. It bothers me to participate fully. Let's say, in the 10. I understand that it comes from the Creator, but nevertheless, this physical pain bothers. How to overcome it? It's impossible. Yeah, I understand that it's from the Creator. I'll tell you even more. Look, said that all the troubles, all the problems, that all the suffering that a person goes through in life, and also the suffering of dying in this life, we're talking about ordinary people, not Kabbalists. Just an ordinary person who goes through all kinds of suffering before dying, and dying in suffering. Butam says it's not worthwhile to give up on that. That's what he said to his relatives and to his students, to those close to him. And I'm telling you also as my students, it's not that we appreciate the suffering and want the suffering, the other another person would say, not them another reward. But especially with regards to an ordinary person, we try to raise the suffering to a spiritual degree. But an ordinary person, even if he doesn't do anything, he suffers from his ego, from his will to receive. That before he gets rid of it, he suffers from it, and that also raises him to spiritual progress. And that's Why he said it isn't worthwhile to give up on the spirit on the suffering. And this brings up a lot of questions. Should we make it easier on people who are about to die so they don't suffer that much, or not help them and let them suffer? No, whatever we can do based on our current success in medicine, we should do, but not that we do all kinds of other actions here, such as euthanasia and other things. Again, I'm not making any decisions here. I don't know, but this is what he said, that he said. I don't think that we should give up the suffering that happens before death. All right, New York 4. Thank you, Rob. And my question is the work, or rather the correction, simply just to relate to the disturbance as a spiritual disturbance, or is there more to do after that? Question. So much we don't have disturbances, we sometimes call it that way, but all in all, what we get from the Creator after we were created in the will to receive, it's all in order to recognize our will to receive as the evil inclination, which is something we don't know and don't see. We don't look at our whole nature as evil, and that it's all against us, and it stands between us and the Creator, and that's what we need to identify. We should be walking all day with this feeling at our nature is what separates us from the Creator. And how do I rise above my nature and cling to the Creator? And how can the group help me do that? So the disturbance, understood, is simply to teach me to hold on to the 10. The disturbances are not disturbances. They're actually the opposite to their assistance. This is called help made against thee. They help me come closer to the Creator and cling to Him and come to the upper level of nature. Where do we have Carbu 7? I'm going to try to do this the best I can. So I start by knowing that whatever situation it is, it's an opportunity for development, for advancement. So what if I just react with an intention to bestow for the benefit of the whole 10? Have faith that the Creator will finish it as He sees fit, instead of spending time scrutinizing all the thoughts in the mind about that situation. Try and see, based on the state you're talking about. I don't want to go into the details of that state, but you speak in a way that shows you ready for the scrutiny. Italy 1. Yesterday, we were studying this text and we mentioned the sufferings of Pharaoh and Amalek. Can you explain a little the difference between these two disturbances, Pharaoh and Amalek, and these two saboteurs that are in this article that we're reading? Now, we're not going to do all kinds of comparisons between the articles here. You remember what you read yesterday. Others don't remember. That's not a way to ask. You still need to be together with the whole group and everyone who is studying and what you're studying right now. It's good that you're doing this kind of study as well, but don't throw it on us. Here, Italy 3. The will to receive is constantly seeking pleasure, but finds suffering, and the desire for spirituality relative to that to come to giving fills us. But it seems like the ego is not letting us advance. Is that the constant struggle we have till the end of correction? Let's say so. What does it mean that the ego doesn't let us advance? It actually advances us, because help made against the without the ego we wouldn't be able to advance. The will to receive is the fuel. Thanks to that, we advance. It's just always transitions us from one goal to another goal, putting us through different directions. It's like with kids without the ego that's pushing them in different directions. They wouldn't evolve. They would not evolve. Same thing with us, as we're still in the will to receive. It is what governs us and pushes us to develop. And here we are told how can we use the will to receive and use the suffering that happens to us, within which lies the saboteur. What does it mean that the saboteur is within the flood? The flood itself is disturbances, and the saboteur as well, but especially by one being within the other, we can advance towards faith, above reason. I'm sorry, teacher, but in the end of the article I read this is the meaning that the afflictions of the body bring him foreign thoughts until these foreign thoughts sabotage and kill his spirituality. We need to prevent that, right? Not to get to that right. These foreign thoughts are what brings us to spirituality if we use them correctly. We can't otherwise come closer to spirituality without the foreign thoughts, but it's not that we use them directly the way they are. rather by these thoughts. Each time, we are forced to connect between us in the 10, and more connect to the friends, and through the connection with the friends, we use these foreign thoughts as leverage that necessitates us to advance forward. We don't understand so well what is the role of our ego. That's why I mentioned how Jacob greeted Pharaoh, because our ego is called helpmate against thee, because without that help against you, you wouldn't be able to advance. All right, well, we'll clarify these things more and more. Can I ask another question, please? Yes, thank you. Because it seems huge where you say that we need, it comes to me like we need to work on it, to take it with us, and then aim it towards spirituality. But correct, let's say I'm in a certain, and I have before me the possibility to learn, to talk with my friends, in our connection throughout the day, do something else, and besides that, I have an immense desire to lay down, to sleep, to rest, to leave everything. So there are two desires that are truly conflicting one another. So here I need to see the extent in which, if I were to connect to the group without the disturbance, and now where I really want to sleep, I feel tired, I'm not in the mood, I don't have anything indifferent towards the friends and everything. If now I overcome and connect to the 10, then I'm already in connection with them in a much higher degree. So that's what we call the help against him. On one hand, it does seemingly an action that's against. On the other hand, it raises me to a higher degree of connection and in coming closer to the Creator. These are clear matters, but see how he works, and we're not allowed to forget this. If we do it like this every day, towards every opportunity that we have for connection, towards the scrutiny of our texts, let's say, and the speaking that we do between us, then we will benefit from it. German 3. Good morning, everyone. Rob, I thought this article was very simple. Now I see how much is hidden in it. All the articles like that, all these articles of Shamartir are like that. That's why I want us to go through them one by one until we, at least in the first reading, it'll be clear in simplicity of what it's talking about there. Yes, of course. And it's not important that it's 2 lines. The Sabbater is sitting inside the flood, but when you start to clarify and scrutinize it, you see that it's in our entire spiritual life. All our advancement depends on these 2 words, in, if possible, exactly where you left off. Turns out that my will to receive aspires to some rest, and the first Sabbater, let's say, he gives me all that. Life is great, family is great, everything's okay, then I can't even move to the second Sabbater and deal with the connection with the friends. So if I'm satisfied and happy, everything's good, then I'll also, the friends are good, then I have no work. Then there's a fear that I, as if should yearn for this work, because if I don't have these 2 Sabbaters, I got nothing to do. Correct. If we don't feel resistance to spirituality, it's a sign that we're not in spirituality. This is like you're sitting in the car and you have to turn on the engine and waste fuel forces, wear and tear, and all of that in order to progress. It's the same here. You can't just lay down and you and your bed will be brought to the end of correction. It doesn't work that way. It only happens according to efforts, and the efforts are measured in accordance with the suffering, with accordance with the force of resistance to it. That's why we're talking here about our two saboteurs, which constantly bother us in our advancement. Also corporal disturbances, which is this world, our family, our job, our health, and all kinds of things. And within them spiritual disturbances, and a person needs to locate these and those, not to be immersed in them, but to locate them and to see the extent in which these disturbances are actually guiding him towards the goal. And then when he aims more to the goal, more internally, he will see how these disturbances will change, because they emerge from the Creator. And if he had corporal disturbances, they're corporal. What can you change here? You'll see that through his attitude towards the goal, he could also change the corporal disturbances as well. It's truly so, and he no longer has a disturbance from the side of the family and the children and work, etc. Rather, it all moves more and more towards spiritual disturbances. We still need to learn these relationships between these 2 saboteurs. Thank you, Rar. Good morning. I hope my picture is correct. Can we say that? Beaner by the flood created some compression over the malhood, and raises us higher by that. Correct. Not even Beaner, but Keter, because it all comes from there, where all the creatures need to reach. Keter, and therefore from there come all the forces that operate Beaner, and Beaner operates Malat, and from that malhood begins to respond correctly to Beaner if she's capable, through people, to perform her actions in order to bestow, and this is how it happens. So what rises higher in the mal to man, prayer? Nothing except for that. This is the purification that comes from and rises to. You also need to agree with how I'm teaching. I want you to get there, towards the searches and the seeking and towards the decisions and scrutinies, and not for me to giving them to you. Prepared, because it won't be absorbed, and it won't be yours. You from the seeking, from the efforts, from all these scrutinies, you need to come to the solution the way it truly happens, so how to take advantage of that state in the 10 and not to disconnect. First, we have to define times for Torah, as they say, where you have to define certain times a day that you want, that you have to connect, like it or not. You have to connect, and you don't let go of a person that says I am not capable today, or I can't today, somewhat that you can. You have to be connected with us, even in somewhat you can't talk. Let's say you're there in some meeting or something, correct, but nevertheless we want to know that you're with us. We're not letting you go. What are you looking at me like that? It's good that there's no one who's letting me. That's right, I won't leave you. So that's it. We have to pressure each person this way. There's no such thing that you can't, that there's something next to you. You have to keep something next to you in a way that you are connected to us, so that we will also know in some red bulb that is lit in us that you're with us, and maybe you can't even listen, but that's next to you. So you are, let's say, even unconscious, but you're with us. This is very important, and this way we don't let go of any friend throughout all the meetings between us, and later we'll talk also how to expand the meetings, not as far as times, but as far as the internal connection. Okay, correct. How to relate correctly to a situation where there's a genetic disease, that suffering doesn't go away. Is there a role for this in spirituality? How to use it correctly for all the sufferings that we have, corporeal, healthy, mental, spiritual, all the ones that we can overcome or not overcome, that we could have overcome in our century, but maybe before that in the history of humanity, we couldn't overcome. All of this needs great study, but altogether we need to accept it and to try and be aimed towards these sufferings in a simple way, to do as the maximum that's possible, so that they won't bother us to reach Lishmer. That's it. That's what we need. All the sufferings, meaning, if I was now controlling the world, I would stop everything except for one thing. In what way can I bring humanity to Lishmer, to a connection with the Creator, from the connection between people that's called Lishma? That's it. And let's hope that we will reach that. Now, how to use all the torments, the sufferings also in that way, to the extent in which we can aim them to reach Lishma. Turkey. A question from my friend: is the inner saboteur condition is an advancement for the person who is in control of this situation? The Creator controls it. No one except for that. Okay, you free to overcome my reluctance to connect with my 10 and therefore be connected with them. What helped me to be able to overcome this disturbance, this perturbation? I see that there is something missing. What's missing here is support from the friends, for them to pressure you so that you will connect to them, come closer to them. That's what's missing. No more than that. Don't wait for you to have the desire that you don't know what states you'll have to overcome, where you'll have no strength to move your smallest finger. Moreover, yourself and your internality, and to aim your heart towards connection with the friends, and therefore you need only through one will help his friend, where a person cannot save himself from the house of imprisonment, only friends. You need to be ready for this and perform such habits and customs and systems, rules in the group, that we are not waiting for a friend to scream for us to help him. No, where we come to a state in which we come and help him, and we don't even wait until we will hear his cry. Simply every single day we need to check throughout the day several times what state all my our friends are in the 10. Are they okay or not? Just like with soldiers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that Everyone is present ready for connection, otherwise we will fall. That's called. Without which certainly we cannot. This is the main rule, the main law for the building of the K for the revelation of the Creator. Okay, German war. What traits and tactics one should develop to battle against the inner sabotage of spirituality. What preparation can help? Constantly examine oneself, to which to what form you're in the perception of the saboteurs. You're always in a state where the saboteurs are holding on to you and not letting go of you. It's just that they're switched. These saboteurs, they're there, changing. And so therefore it seems to you like you're free maybe somewhat from them because you're not paying attention. But actually every single moment you are in the hands of the saboteurs, external saboteurs and more internal saboteurs, and both are operating upon you, meaning you feel the laziness a little, sickness something else. This is towards the physical saboteurs, and within them spiritual saboteurs, just like we read. And it's a problem, a very big problem, how we can get rid of them. And this is to me each time evoking myself to a way to exit their grip as they're gripping onto to me and binding me, and I have no possibility of escaping. What do I need to do in order to escape them? And here there's but one solution. The 10. A prisoner cannot save himself from the house of imprisonment, but rather only his friends grab him or throw him a rope, or something they do, and only in such a way he can run away from the house of imprisonment from his ego. Only friends can save each of us from within the ego of each of us where a person is. Therefore to flood the internal saboteur, the external saboteur, we need to think now what they are towards the 10, towards my exit from the 10, towards am I coming closer to in order to bestow towards, and how I nevertheless come closer to that I, near that, and always divide my presence in my egoistic desire, to two parts, to the corporal part and the spiritual part, meaning to those two saboteurs, where one saboteur comes and brings me all kinds of corporal problems into me, fatigue, sickness, all kinds of problems, at work, at home and so on. That's the corporeal saboteur, and the spiritual saboteur where he starts ready to work. This is not for you, and you can't, and how many years have you been investing in this, and so on and so forth. And I need to arrange my attitude in the right way towards both of them. You see friends, also together we read an article of 4 lines. 4 lines of an article. Yes, and we're talking about it already for more than an hour. That's how it is. It's a sign that it has become closer to us, but we will quickly go over a few more questions and that's it. Tel Aviv 3. How to work with a flood that the friend goes through. That we've learned many times. If we identify that a friend is in under the flood, we must simply go to him, go down to him and help him. How can help people who feel the flood externally? The main thing for us is to connect the external flood with the inner saboteur, so I won't think that I'm in an external flood only, because all the reason for the external flood is from the internal flood. If I don't identify it, it's not good, so I didn't scrutinize the situation correctly, so it's enough to present it to them as this Russian. I don't know what you're talking about. We're talking about people that are connected, intense, that are yearning for spirituality. Don't bring me babushkas. PD3. In the last month, I had the opportunity to talk to friends who discovered they're sick with a disease. They're all working in a tent with the friends, but they keep saying that it's very difficult to overcome the personal fear of losing life and keep constantly hold on to the Creator, hold on to the goal. Maybe you could give an advice of how to overcome that fear. I can't give any advice here. All I can say is to all those who belong to those people, who are attributed to those people there, amongst or not, if it's not then there's nothing we can do. Yes, students, so if they're in, we need to pray for them at least once a day, meaning to mention they're them. We need to try and think about them, and we need to also strengthen them as much as possible. First of all, in that everything that comes from the Creator, that it all comes in order to attain the final goal, towards the final goal. It's clear that all of us eventually passes away from this life, this corporal life, the lowest world, the most difficult world, and the most darkest of worlds. So we need to help them be constantly connected to the goal as much as possible, and in terms of the person himself when these moments when the fear takes over. So we need as much as possible to strengthen them, that there's no fear here, but rather each and everyone like this will feel in his life that he is moving and passing from this life, and he should just strengthen himself and connect himself to the next life. Lesson. We are studying from the study of dance, field, circles, on lines. Item 5. The order of expansion of the T of the circles. The line is called. The first circle is the closest to and is called of. Afterwards, this line expand further, was extended a little and became circular once more, and a second circle was made within the first circle. This is called the circle of. Then it expanded further down and became circular once more and formed a third circle within the second circle. It is called the circle of Adam. It continued to expand and become circular in the same manner until the 10th circle, called the circle of. Thus we explained how the 10 were emanated as 10 circles, one within the other. All right. From this I don't see with us any questions. It's clear. Yes, though, we have KV1. Thank you. The matter of the circles and lines, one after the other. When we work from below up, it also works in the same way, and from below upwards, we don't work in any form whatsoever. We will learn this later, but it's not according to the same laws of from below, from above down. You tell me please. It says that each circle is inside the previous circle. Yes, on the other hand everything is within us. The greatest circle is within us, somewhere, deeper opposite of what's written here. No, I don't understand what is inside of us. What kind of things are we talking about here? So, we don't need to grasp it this way. The first circle within it, the second circle, the third, etc., until all the circles emerge, and then the 10 ft of circles are completed. The line moves from the most external circle to the most internal circle. Gradually, he says that the light that expands in the circles is separate from the light of itself, and what is a different quality of the circular or round light is distinguished from any other light, and it's connected to its source. That's what everyone wants to say. For the time being, he doesn't want to say anything else besides that. What does it mean that circle is formed within another circle? And what is the line that connects them? A circle within a circle within a circle. This way, they have one central point, and around it, they're all rounded up, and that's it. The lines, there are no lines for the time being. For now, you can just think about how we can connect the circles to one line, which moves from the center of the circle, the first circle, to the center of the second circle and third, etc., until the temple. The center is the creator and the center of all the circles. No, it's simply the source of the light. The source of the light. 7 columns. Why does he call the circles? By what? Why does he name the circles this? Why specifically the names of the knot of the phases? For example, there's absolutely no meaning to this. Right now, the sermons, phases, all that. That is how we describe the private discernments in every single person. PT 33. Circles speak of one world, or where does it happen? Happens in those same stages which emerge from Adam. Eventually it comes from the light that pressures them or presses them, compels them to connect in a new form, in a way that they emerge from one out of the other through all the levels. And by that everything is complete. Like he says, and about this, the circle is called the circle of it. Emerges last. Typically where we speak of Adam, the world of Adam, we draw it in lines above the taboo. Here he depicts the world of Adam Kadam as a circle within a circles. Can you explain the difference between the two states and what comes first? At first the circles emerge, and then from them the straight lines emerge, the lines that connect between those circles. So we're talking about before the expansion of Galar that we always draw. Yes, before the expansion of the parts of him, the circles create the lines, and the line reveals them. What's the relationship between them? The relations between them are such that the circles emerge, and as a result of that there's a connection through the straight. One more morning. How can we depict this emotionally? This process, 10 circles, which connect between them through a line, which moves through them from above down, connects those circles, and through this line, they are connected and receive the light from the upper circle, from each, and pass this light from themselves to the lower circle. For the time being, this is what we are hearing. When the cascading came down of the light, he describes the shame. He says it's a creation in and of itself, meaning they're already a system of feelings. How does that connect to the system of bestower and receiver? How does Mal respond to this? You can describe lines moving here and there, but it doesn't connect. How to depict this emotionally? The first circle ends from its straight line, comes out of it, and continues till the second line, till the second circle, and so on and so forth. Fills the second circle, continues from the second to the third, and this is how 10 circles come out. I understand this. I see no lack of words here. There are simply circles here which come from the fact that there's no limitation whatsoever on the line yet, and the line connects all 10 circles to one another. I understand. He's trying to understand not schematically how the circles and lines cascade down, but directly in the work of a person, how to understand circles and lines emotionally. We can't say emotionally because we don't feel the circles, and therefore just explain a little about them. That in the circles there are no, like in a form of a circle, there's no right, left, above, down, but rather they're all connected by a line that goes through them. Thank you. What is the difference between a line and straightness? Between line and straightness, there's no difference. It's the same thing. No, yeah, the line is straight. You said it from above down, there's one law, and from below up is a second, is another law. You used to think that from above down we attain this law, and you said it's different work. Can you help us scrutinize this? From above down, the law is that from the highest or the higher one to the lowest one, from the upper one to the lower one, and this is how they connect together and pass the filling of light from one to another, the circles, and from below upwards. That is already a different quality, in which each circle collects his coarseness, and with the assistance of the screen, brings reflected light, and with this reflected light he rises to the malat of the previous circle, and shines in him. This is something we're going to learn. It's not yet. No. How to understand the tense field and the 5 of surrounding lights. These are different lights. There are many different light straightness. Circles, the way in which they are erected, what's the connection between them, what exactly are they transferring from one to the other. We'll learn these things, but for the time being, it's just a certain initial lessons that we're going through. Here, kind of breath, I'm sorry, brush strokes on this text for the time being. Is it true to say that the cascading down of the circles teach us about, inform us about the lines? The cascading of the circles also teach us about the line. Yes. How much does it actually influence the line along the way? How much does it influence? Well, they complete the line. The question is like this: to what extent the circles that cascade down influence the changing states in the line and the way it connects the circles. Free circles. Written that the circles connect using the line, but the circles themselves do not touch. Is there a space between them? No, there's a certain space, but it's not for that. What's the purpose of this space? For the time being for us, it's kind of like an empty space, an empty void. What does it fill? Is that filled with anything? The main thing is the connection between the vessels. The vessels were circles. There were vessels of straightness. And now, the vessels of circles, but in a completely different kind or form. He also told Matt, the circles acquire coarseness, and then they fill the part of the using the screen, but they don't touch one another. The circles fill the space that remains after the restriction. And how should we say this? They help the upper light to fill all of creation with their light, with their clothing. What is the connection between the state of and the state of the circles? Between the state of and the state of the circles is endless. It's a something you can't find in it, something from this aspect of being a circle. And that's why we say circles and straightness. What is it about the circles that does not exist in itself? Why did arrange itself in circles? There's nothing that you can point to more correctly to say. Whereas whereas we have 10 spur and in these 10 fields, there are phases, discernments, from the root phase all the way to ins, to the infinity and vice versa from ins to the root. But, for time being, we cannot point to anything else. Last questions. Describes infinite fulfillment, no limit. Yes. What do the circles express? What do they express? Yes. The circles express that they are sustaining within them light of and transfer it through the line to where it needs to be. Thank you. Hello. Is there a difference between the circles? Are they of different sizes or the same size? And do they have a will to receive in them? How is that expressed? Yes, there are in the circles the will to receive. The question is where they are and what they want to express. That's something that we're yet to learn. Circles all the same size? No, we can't talk about size. We're talking about the light that fills them versus the line. But that is also not for now. Sure, now we have what makes a circle be reborn, a deficiency. Circle suddenly wants to be to come out. The light pressures the record, the bisemo, and compels it, obligates it to express itself, what it has in it in this record. That's why from the record already the line and the new are born, and the shape of each circle has a certain quality, right? That's not scrutinized itself yet. No, a circle means that on all sides it has the same quality, that it gathers all of it, all its phases, discernments, and makes from them a circle, that is, he makes from it something that we cannot attribute to any other form other than to the circle. And the circle is equal in one equivalence. It's a state, right? It's a state. And the state of each circle in the end, what it's done in the part of 10 circles, is it one quality, inside of which theirs are states from. Can you say that? No, we'll learn that it's not exactly like that. One more question. If the state of the circle can you compare it to the 4 phases of direct light? Like, it's not similar. No, we cannot make between them any connection. Rather, 4 phases of direct light are 4 phases of light, of straight direct light. The circle is the circles, and that's it. Then wait. Thank you. Can you say that the line is the inner light? No, of course it's so, but it's just inner light is not line. Can we say that each circle is like relative to the line that emerges from it? What needs to happen in the line? Another circle come out of it. What is the transition from the line to the line is capable of performing a coupling, of striking with the upper light and to change, to receive the upper light without any limit. Then a line will become a circle. BT 19. Friends, the construction of the circles is that our attitude toward the other. Do they exist, or does a person build them through his relationship to the other? No. Circles are like the straight lines. They have to emerge. When they emerge, and through them there's a connection and activities and actions that's ahead of us. Yeah, but a person creates them. Her attitude to the other creates them. We create them. We create them. We make them. Yes, if there's no man, there's no circles. Well, I can't say such a thing. Oh, if there's no man, there's no circles. If you won't say it that way, but it shouldn't lead you to some wrong results. Key 7. How to study tests correctly. From below up, something whole a model. Repeat that again. How to study test correctly. Do we study from below like from in our world, or differently? No, we learn the study of from the first page to its last. We may skip here and there, but over certain things, but altogether that's how we learn it. It's a study book, which engages in the whole spiritual world. Does the screen have a spiritual shape, form, or is it only a point of scrutiny? Of course, the screen has a spiritual form, because it upon the desire. There's a desire. The screen close upon it and acquires a direction. What's the internal intention for there to be a screen? It needs to be such that it will observe all the desires of the creator. Circle means that there are no limitations as the other parts. Correct? Because it's a part of the desire that's different. Is that the reason? Yes, women eat a what? Hello women. Now women. Good morning. It's a question from a friend in the group. She asks, during the study of death, how important it is to maintain the correct picture that text is describing. How to construct this picture, image, as much as you can. we didn't succeed today, then you'll succeed in the next lesson, and a couple other lessons altogether. We need to try and build some relation to, for us to have this relation towards the 5 phases, and that's how we will advance. 2 questions I hear about the attitude to test were about circles and lines. What do I have to do to put this schematic in my head what to do inside to derive to extract as much light from the study? Thus far, we have the 2 forms of vessels to work with circles and straightness. The vessels of circles there's no control over them. We learn them as being as if in the world of ins, and vessels of straightness we learn them in a form in which they are closer to us, closer and more dependent on the desire in a person, on the advancement of a person, meaning that there's something in them that we can influence or bestow upon these vessels with our strength, with our forcefully. Whereas in circles, we have no such possibility to bestow upon them for the time being. Who else do we have? USA San Francisco. Thank you, Rob. Do the circles have the same center? Do they share the same center? Does the line somehow relate to the center, or does it somehow relevant to the edges of the circle? Or yes, we will learn that. We will feel it. We will have a whole chapter on this. Thank you. Turkey, good morning. When we think of the light that comes from itself and it expands through the circles. Thank you. Is it correct to understand it that all the sphere, all the circles share a single root? R says, yes. How do we need to feel it in the work in the Tim? Wait, how to feel for the time being? We don't feel, but along the way. Mac 11. Apologize about the question, it's a little bit off topic. You said that we have to come out of the lesson empty. What does that mean? I don't know. I don't know in what context it was said. No. I simply can't give an answer to that question because it's kind of this question that's kind of hanging in the air. Besides the women, we still have 2 other questions. Turkey 9. Do you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry if they haven't sent a question. We don't have a translation. Oh, hold on. Now we have it. If we look at a line, is something that lacks limitations, is a line without limitation, eventually becoming a circle. Can you say that this is the state that relates to our spiritual development? Something along those lines? No. That's not connection to us. Not a line, not a circle. We're not yet in such conditions or such limitation constrictions. But soon we'll talk about it. But right now, for the time being, we don't have a circle nor a line. Asaf, we learn simply the cascading down of creation. You have 4 phases of direct lines, direct light, then restricts itself out of shame, then parts of all the remaining parts of him. Where can we place here the circles and lines? Why do you need to push them inwards? Because all those years for me, those 2 things are disconnected. It will work out. Don't try to do this. Otherwise, it'll be very difficult for you to come out of it. Okay, so the line doesn't pass through the circle, but only surrounds it because they're different. So how does it pass things from one circle to another? If it doesn't pass through it, the line goes through all the circles, connects them together, and that's it. That's the situation. How does a line connect to a circle in order to take something from it to the next circle? We will learn. We'll learn. It's not written yet. Our circle is the closest to it. We must understand the discernments and the names of the tense field. Sometimes we refer to them as 4 phases. Sometimes, other times we call them, and sometimes we refer to them as consisting of 6 of its own. And the thing is that when we refer specifically to the vessels, meaning only to the substance of the emanated being, we define the names of the tense in them by the name for phases in the world to receive. When we refer specifically to the light that clothed these vessels, we call them, and when we speak only of the vessels, but want to emphasize the records of the lights that they contain when they are empty of the light attributed to them, then we refer to them as the origin of the above-mentioned 10 vessels called, etc., is back in the world of restriction. Before the emergence of the line, after the departure of the lighter from the tense fields, when those vessels remained devoid of flight, they are called 10 circles, and it is known that although the light departed from them, there still remained a record in each and every circle from the light that was in it, meaning a very small illumination from all the previous light remained in each vessel. This illumination produces in the vessel a yearning, so it will not rest and will not be at peace until it draws once more all that light it had before in quantity and quality. This illumination is called a record. Know that the content of the names of the 10, etc., defines primarily the records of the light that remained in the 10 vessels. From this you learn that there is not a single desire in the worlds, or even a slight awakening of a desire, both in the upper ones and in the lower ones, and even in the corporeal still vegetative animate speaking that is not rooted in these tense field of circles. At the same time, it is clearly impossible for any desire to awaken in some essence, if a sufficient fulfillment for that desire has not appeared before. The thing is that it has already been thoroughly explained in part 1 of this book that the will to receive is not the first reason for the light or for its fulfillment as people think. On the contrary, the light and the fulfillment are the reason for the desire. The will to bestow that is necessarily included in the upper light and gendered through its quality. The will to receive in the emanated being, because a desire in the upper one becomes a compelling force in the lower one. Thus the upper light became the reason for the appearance of the 4 phases in the will in the emanated being. These are the roots of all the desires that are revealed in the world. Therefore, how can a desire appear without a reason, without the upper light that engenders it? It is similar to saying that there is some being in the world without a father and a mother that begot it. You must also know that all of reality and all the creations that are destined to come into the worlds are already established and exist in their full glory and perfection, as it is destined to appear in the worlds. As you evidently see that all the desires that are destined to appear already appeared and were revealed in. They were also fulfilled completely, and it is the completeness and fulfillment, namely the upper light, that engendered and revealed these desires. It turns out that the filling of the desire comes first and causes the revelation of the desire that is related to that fulfillment. Now you can thoroughly understand the matter of the records that remained in the tense field of circles after the restriction and the departure of the perfection and the fulfillments that were in the above 4 phases, which are called tense circles. These records mean that all the desires that filled them when they were in, that they have now lost, remained thoroughly imprinted and recorded in them. They necessarily remained longing and yearning for the fulfillments and the wholeness that they had, and this is what we call records. We said above that there cannot be any revelation of a desire of any essence, both in the upper worlds and in the corporeal world, that is not rooted in the tense of circles, in a way that there are 2 roots that precede the existence of all the worlds after the restriction. The first is when every desire already exists in all its glory and fullness. This is the reality that exists in Answer. The second is when all the desires are completely emptied of the fulfillment that was related to them before from. This is called the world of restriction. All the vessels and the substance of the created beings are extended from the world of restriction, meaning only empty vessels and desires that have lost their fulfillment, and all the fulfillments of these desires are extended from. Remember these 2 facts well, for they are among the most necessary to remember as we continue to engage in this wisdom. There's a question from K. We learn about circles and straightness, and now BAM introduces the concept of records. What is as the cause that precedes all desires in the spiritual and corporal worlds? So what is the difference between records and just that's full of light? What is this concept that he introduces here? How is it different to everything we learned before? A thought or a desire, the Creator be God, and it wants to be filled with that light. In relation to that light there is that. That's why all the desires that were, you can't really say, but from their creation, that let's say from the beginning of creation, that's a better way to say it. They want to be filled with that light that was in them to begin with. That's the difference between the desires from before the first restriction and after it. Well, let's try and answer more questions. Good morning. I hope I understood what wrote. Keep it short. Can you hear me? Speaks of how the light built the tent. Fern. Then he filled them with light, and then the light departs the vessels, and then records remain in the vessels, which are the impression, if I understood correctly, of the light of the vessel from the light. So if I understand correctly, in each degree, in each sphere, where a person advances and develops in well, that's possible only if he awakens his desire, the pure desire to resemble the Creator more and more. So can we look at it in such a way where we awaken the records through our will, and then the will changes and turns pure. Did I understand correctly? No, but we'll still learn about it. What happens to us after we process those records, and after we drive the light out of the vessels, our vessels? We'll learn about that later. Question. It's a question for well many years now. We've read about it, so it's an opportunity. So, the definition of the circle is that the surrounding light that surrounds the pearl, for example, it becomes a circle, the surrounding light, and the line is the direct light from reflected light from the work of the created being. Is that correct? No, it's not that. No, we'll learn about it. H10. Where are these records? In the upper world, or they're in the desire? In the desire of the vessel. Where is that? Feel the vessel, and you feel its actions, its motions. Then you also discover the desire in the desire of the vessel. We discover the records. And how do we awaken those records? We'll get there. What else? Mark 3. We said that between the circles there's a space. Are the records revealed there? Well, let's say there. But I wouldn't want to answer that question. It'll confuse you. We'll start researching something that we don't even belong to yet. He describes here, if I understand correctly, the records, and he says that there are always two boots. One is the state of the vessel when it was full, and the second is from when the vessel is empty. Is that correct for us? Do we also operate in that way? Do our desires work the same way? In somewhat? Yes. Is it a principle we should try to take advantage of to describe it in? Not yet. Not yet. When it's in our hands, when it'll be clear, then we can use it. Thank you. Turkey. Of what kind of prayer can bring us to perfection and complete fulfillment as a 10? We want, in the greatest and most correct prayer, to connect between us to that one vessel and receive all the light that comes to us from the Creator in order to bestow back to Him. Hello. If I understood correctly, what we learn about circles and straightness now, that's records after the restriction that the light left there. It's a structure that then is filled by our work from below, upwards through screen and reflected light. Is that correct? So there's no screen here or anything. It's just a state, the state of things after the restriction. Later on we'll learn how to do it. Obviously there's a screen there. Can it be said that this is the expansion from the upper one? His attitude, his desire is left there. Even if it's an expansion on behalf of the upper one, we must against that to awaken the reflected light in it. We can receive the direct light. That's why it's not for now yet. Wait in another 1 or 2 lessons. Okay, but I'm asking about the state we just learned about. We learned that there is a line that becomes a circle building the sphere out of circles. This is an outcome of the response of the lower one, or is there no reaction response yet? It's just the upper one building the future lack, or the future work for the lower one. I didn't understand what you want to ask. Thank you. Okay, we need to end the lesson and go to next. Yes, so we'll continue studying together tomorrow. Thank you, Raf. And now we'll start reading the Zohar. We are reading from the Zohar, the introduction to the book of Zohar, the articles, the 7th commandment, item 225. We are going to start from the middle, the paragraph that starts, This is why Elijah must be present at each circumcision, so that the mouth that testified that the sons of Israel had left the covenant will testify that Israel are keeping the covenant. he took upon himself some's power to slander the sons of Israel, saying that Israel had left the covenant, as it is written, and its owner has been warned. Yet he does not confine it. Hence, he has the power to testify that they are keeping the covenant. Then the power of the prone ox is removed completely, and all the mow that departed because of the prone ox can reappear. Friends, besides the chair of the Godfather on which the circumcision and exposing are performed, another chair should be set up for Elijah. And why is a single chair not enough for both? It is because in every place the chair is the beginning of the correction, the instilling of the upper one in the lower one, and also the mow that appear through the circumcision and exposing. And Elijah's testimony about the keeping of the covenant are two distinct matters. The measure of the mow that appear through exposing are on the part of the whole ox, when it is not known that it is an ox, that gash. This is the returning of Noah to Kedusha, through dividing its price equally. Elijah's testimony, on the other hand, is to remove the evil of the prone ox, which is the power of the three impure shells themselves, and shut their mouths so that they cannot slander. Two chairs are required: the throne of the Creator, the throne of the Godfather, for instilling the actual through the circumcision and exposing, and for instilling the illumination of Elijah, which shuts the mouths of the shells, so they cannot slander. This is the chair of Elijah. We should understand why is it necessary to mention in words, this is the chair of Elijah. Otherwise, even if a chair had been prepared for him, he will not come there. It is written, what are you doing here, Elijah? Which is the mouth of Elijah. Also the Holy Covenant is the mouth of the Creator. Hence there's a difference between Holy Covenant, the mow that appear through circumcision and exposing, which are the mouth of the Creator, and the mouth of Elijah himself. To understand it, we should delve deeper into the matter of shutting the mouth of the prone ox so does not slander Israel after the return of the mow through circumcision and exposing. This is because besides Elijah's testimony, another special correction is required, which is done by throwing of the foreskin to the dust. It is said in the Zed that when a person is circumcised on the 8th day, when he has passed the 7th day, which is, who is called holy, the foreskin is cut and thrown outside. The sither sees that sheep is given a part of that offering of the circumcision, and through that gift she turns from accusing and advocating Israel before the Creator. Explanation: it is the nature of the spiritual ones that are incorporated in one another, and since the foreskin was once attached to, when it is cut off from it takes a part of the with it, and when we throw the foreskin to the outer ones, they suckle through it some illumination from the moin that appeared through the circumcision and exposing. This is why they no longer wish to slander Israel and arrest these mow, for they will lose their share as well which they take from these mow. For this reason they become Israel's advocates to keep the mow in them. This is why Elijah does not tolerate this correction. For although they stop slandering Israel, they take a part of Kedusha in return for it. To correct that, Elijah took the slandering upon himself and did not wish to appease them whatsoever by giving a part of the offering of Kedusha. Hence, even though they has stopped slandering and became an advocate, Elijah himself is still slandering to completely uproot the power of the Sar and separate him from holiness. This is why the mouth of Elijah is required here in addition to the mouth of the Creator, which appears through the circumcision and exposing, which leaves a part of their offering to the, since Elijah's mouth completely uproots the. This is why it is said that the mouth that testifies that Israel had left the covenant is the one that will testify that Israel are keeping the covenant. This is why it is necessary to mention verbally, this is the chair of Elijah. It is necessary to mention and to extend the mouth of Elijah on his chair, and not settle for the mouth of the Creator, who removes the accuser and turns it into an advocate, for he remains committed to giving a part to their. But although Elijah's mouth, he removes the accuser and does not need to give him any appeasement for it. If one does not exert to extend the mouth of Elijah with his mouth that is on his chair, then he is not present there, for he must be drawn in, and it is not a question how it is possible that the mouth of Elijah corrects more than the mouth of the Creator, for this is what God has created to do. since the Creator began creation in a way that through one's good deeds he will be able to complete it. 226. And God created the great monsters. There are two sea monsters, and they are the foreskin and the exposing, the cutting of the foreskin, followed by exposing. Also they are male and female, and every living soul that moves is the inscription of the Holy Covenant, a holy living soul, with which the waters swarmed, refers to the upper waters that were attracted to it. On this inscribed token, the sea monsters are and his mate. Opposite them are the foreskin and exposing, which are the boar serpent and the slam serpent, male and female. Since the foreskin is the boar serpent, a male which must be removed and thrown to the dust, and exposing is a correction, removing the evil of the slant serpent, the female. It is written, and every living soul that moves, implying to the inscription of that token of Holy Covenant, since through the exposing, when the skin is parted, exposing to hear and to hear over the soul, the inscription of the Yud appears, the seal of the upper world, which is called. This is why it is called an inscription of the holy living soul, which it is written, and every living soul that moves. It was said upper waters which were drawn to it, to that inscribed token, meaning the mud of the upper world, upper above which are called, extended only to the inscription of the youth. Then the letter He comes out of the Mar, and the Yud enters in its step, and it is called me like. 227. For this reason, Israel were imprinted in the holy and pure inscription below, like the holy inscriptions above, to distinguish between the holy side and the other side. Thus are Israel inscribed to distinguish between the sanctity of Israel and the idol-worshipping nations that come from the other side. And he has inscribed Israel. He inscribed their beasts and fowl to distinguish between them and the beasts and fowls of the idol-worshipping nations. Happy are Israel also. Their beasts and fowl were inscribed, because man's relation towards the rest of the creatures in the world is as the relation of the collective toward the individuals in it. This is because, within a man's body, he includes all the people in the world in one collective, and each is an individual creature, existing independently, apart from the form of man. Hence, as Israel are distinguished from the nations of the world by the human in them, that same division applies to the elements in them, which are beasts and fowl. The reason why he mentions beasts and fowl specifically is because the text mentions them. However, it is the same with all creations derived from Israel and from the nations of the world. Let's watch clip number 1 to connect between us and reveal the true state. There's nothing more than to connect amongst ourselves, and from this connection, which keeps growing, being updated again and again, to discover the true state of nature, which is to say God. So connecting correctly means to make an effort on our behalf to become closer together in opinions, in terms of our goal, all of us together on the one hand, and on the other hand, to expect the power that will come and connect us together, because we can't connect. We can somehow, seemingly, in a mutual way, advance each one for all the others, and so on, but it's not really true. We can't. Each one is very egoistic, injured in his ego. All right, well, captured, imprisoned. All right, imprisoned, and therefore, we ask for the reforming light which will help us achieve a connection, and specifically in this part of the soul, because the system, this whole general system, is called Adam or soul. One for everyone. Next article is the 8th commandment. 228. The 8th commandment is allowed to proselyte who comes to be circumcised and be under the wings of the. She lets under her wings all those who separate themselves from the other in pure sight and draw near her, as it is written, let the earth bring forth loving souls after its kind. The issue of the wings of the is a long, profound matter, but I will clarify it as needed to understand the words below. The is called, with regard to the disclosure, that is, she does not depart us even when we are very far from, as we learn in every place where they are exiled, there is with them, and as it is written, who dwells with them in the midst of their impurity. In that respect is also called, and the disclosure is present only when our face to face on an equal level. Since then the illumination of the coupling is very great until the unification appears in even the most remote restricted places. Also, it is known that the structure of son does not come at once, rather. First the son is built in the vac, then is extended. This applies to all the degrees of son. Moreover, even when half ver are not cancelled, because they too need to assist the coupling of, at that time they are called the wings of Thaner. It is written, and the Kim shall spread out their wings upward, covering the ark with their wings. Their primary task is to spread their wings and cover the illumination of the coupling of Gudlut, so that even the most remote will be able to receive the light of the coupling, without anything reaching the shells through it. It is so because those who are not in complete purity are always repelled from the light of holiness, or fear that they will pass their abundance to the shells. However, now, through the covering of the wings there is a careful guarding of the abundance, until even the ones nearest to the shells cannot fail and bring down the abundance to the shells, because the wings protect them. Therefore, one who comes to convert and be circumcised, since his body comes from the foreskin whose fathers did not stand by Mount Sea, and the filth of the serpent did not cease from them, they still have the power to raise him to upper Kushar by raising man for the great coupling of sun face to face, where the wings of the govern, spreading their wings and covering the light of the coupling. Then we can raise the soul of the proselyte to there as well, and he is sanctified by the light of that coupling. And even though he is not completely pure at that time, he can receive from the illumination of the coupling, because the wings protect him, so the abundance will not be transferred to the shells, although he is near them. It was said under the wings of the, because they can receive only from the light of Malat, and only from her wings the externality of Mal, but not from the body of the, much less himself. So here the Z reading for today, and we have announcements. Amit, please. This week, Wednesday and Thursday, we will have Yom Kippur, and this will be the schedule. Let's see the first slide. So, Wednesday the 1st of October, we'll have our morning lesson as per usual. Preparation at 2:40, lesson begins 2:50. Then we'll have an afternoon lesson 12:00 p.m. for 1 hour, and then 2:30 p.m. till 3:30, we'll have the pre-fast meal. Next slide, please. Now 5 to 5:30, we'll have a light buffet, and the fast begins 5:45. This will not be broadcast from this point, and then we'll have the prayer which is also, there's not going to be a broadcast to the friends in the world, but we will send you recommendations for study materials and whoever's here in Israel. This is the schedule. So 5:45, the day prayer is not broadcast. If you want to stay here in the building for the whole duration of Yunbib, you're more than welcome. We have room for men and women both. After that, we'll have a break. Then we'll have a lesson again, no broadcast, which will take place in the Rumor Wheat. Alright, now Thursday 2nd of October again, there won't be any broadcast. You can't use Zoom to connect to the lesson. There won't be any translations and so on, only locally. So, at 5:30, we'll have a lesson. 8, the morning prayer, 400 p.m. lesson. Then at 6 we'll have the end of the fast prayer. Then the fast ends at 7 and 1 minute, and then we'll have a buffet, which is also, there's no broadcast, but after that, we're going to gather for the Balism meal in commemoration of the passing of Balism. This will be at 7:30, and there will be broadcast. So, everything that I just said will be sent to everyone. And now the Moscow group, please. Hello dear friends. I'd like to share a story from the Moscow group. It all started from the pandemic till today. We had a very big desire that we really wanted to return to a physical center. It all started from the Shabbat lessons and the meals, and then we added another lesson, a second lesson, and in this way, the desire just grew. We made efforts that you can't believe. What efforts we put into find a center for the group. We had arguments, and we almost raised our hands up. But the persistency just brought us help from above, and we got from the Creator this center that we waited for so much, this structure that was just ready to take us. We could come to the lessons right away, to have big meals, prepare food, And now we're preparing it for our first Congress. One prayer the friends are having, making great efforts to prepare this place for everybody. And friends are going tens of kilometers in order to come here and incorporate and fill the friends with love. Now with great expectation and yearning, we're awaiting our first convention here in this building. Many friends signed up. 300 friends will be here in the first day, and many as well on the second day, and so on. Many friends are coming from and other countries. We're eagerly waiting to open our doors here for this wonderful convention. On Saturday, we'll have an open kitchen. We'll do barbecue together. So, we invite you all with fear and love to this great convention kind. And we'll end with a song. When we're trapped inside ourselves and we're feeling lost and we just want to break free at any cost. We feel the yearning, our heart starts burning, and we see the desire. We walk through the fire, set free. Let's raise the prayer. Open our hearts with our despair. Open our hearts and can make a single one. Now we're headed towards our goal of birth. Even though it often seems between heaven and earth, we feel we're earning. My heart starts burning, and we see love of the desire. We walk through the fire, set free. Heat. Hello friends. During the first part we will connect to a lesson from December 21st, 2021 about the article Shamarti 104 and the Sabater was sitting. You can find the article in Baram Writings and in the Shamarti book as well as on the system Shamarti 104 and the Sabater was sitting. Shalom. So we're in a lesson from the Shamarti articles. We will start with an article number 14 in Shamarti. You can find the study material in our site in the food system under the study material button. You can send their questions as well. Pertinent questions to the lesson will be aired during the lesson roughly. Yes, we have 2 very short articles today from Shamanti, and that's probably more or less how Barisim said it and Rush wrote it based on his words, and it's these few points. Along the path is achieving Lishma, which is above